So it looks like Collision is actually going to be doing a residency in Arlington, Texas. So, as first reported by Dallas News, AEW and the city of Arlington announced a historic partnership that will feature AEW hosting a summer series of events on the path to AEW All In. They missed a really good opportunity to call it the Summer Sizzler Tour, like Dusty would have done.
What's that tour?
Yeah. From Esports Stadium in Arlington. So I guess kids play video games there. Beginning Saturday, July 20th. So they're going to do a bunch of AEW Collision and Ring of Honor there. I think they said in the actual press release, they said Ring of Honor dates will be announced too. So, but they're doing Death Before Dishonor there, and so I think Ring of Honor almost has a damn residency in Texas too. They do a lot of stuff in Texas with Ring of Honor, but I think you know what? I think this is a sign of a couple of things. I don't think that it is like all the doom and gloom that people make it out to be. This is actually probably going to turn out to be a pretty good deal and financially good. But it also says that Collision is not doing well on tour, which we already kind of knew. And they're probably losing their ass on some of those arenas that they're booking because there's not putting that many people in it. And so this is a good way to keep the costs down. Don't have to do a ton of touring. And they might even be getting a site fee. I don't know if that's been reported yet, but I know people are talking that they actually might be getting paid by the city of Arlington. And Arlington is actually looking at bringing in a lot of stuff for tourism and things like that. The arena is like 2,500. I don't think they will ever set it up for 2,500, especially if they're going to be running that many shows. But look, they can do like Impact Zone and set it up to 1,200. And I think, look, Collision was the TV show that nobody ever asked for. It's kind of the stepchild of AEW, more so than Ring of Honor. And but this is a way to make it a viable product, and I think I'm okay with it.
I am too. I'm going to throw this at you too. Like I do think they're probably getting something of a fee, so now you're going to get paid to run some shows as opposed to have to stress booking places, right? The company is not hot right now. I'm going to throw at you something, and now WWE. Michael, do you recall a little show called Monday Night Raw?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember where the first 2 years of Monday Night Raw took place?
The Manhattan Center.
Every week, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So they had a residency in New York City doing those every week. And you know what I liked about those old Monday Night Raw shows is in 1992, when the business started to go down, in early 93, they course corrected and changed the show. Right? Yeah. Now you watch those early Raws from the Manhattan Center, nothing on TV felt like that. Right? The shows became unique unto themselves, and they didn't feel like the syndicated shows. It had a different vibe. It had a different feeling to it, I should say. Right? And I think that you have, as Collision has tried to find its own identity. I went to a Collision recently. I had a good time. I think giving it a unique visual distinctiveness is only a good thing, right? I miss wrestling shows looking different. Like, I liked when AEW ran Daly's Place just because it looked different.
Yeah.
Right? I miss WCW Saturday Night Live when it was either at Techwood or when it was at I forgot the name of their place. They ran it at Center Stage in Atlanta, right? Those shows looked different. They had a different feel. I liked Manhattan Center Raws. I liked the Impact Zone. Mm-hmm. Right? So every people go, well, aren't you going to burn out the market? I'm like, not necessarily. Memphis had Memphis TV and the Mid-South Coliseum every Monday night for decades.
Yeah.
Right? All this is a few weeks worth of shows. And you said 1,200? I bet they set it up for like 5. You can get 500 people there and make it sound great. Look what NXT did with Full Sail when they were doing. Look what they still did with the Capitol Combat Center. Like, you need to make the show feel different. I think this is a good thing. And especially if they're getting a couple bucks from Arlington to do this, and it's in an esports stadium, so it's going to be smaller. It's going to have a different vibe to it right away. I think this is a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Dynamite is the A show. It's never going to not be the A show. So them just touring around makes a ton of sense. Earlier this year, there was a rumor that TNA was looking at going to take over the Full Sail arena that NXT used to go to. And I was like, all about it, because they're losing their ass while they're touring too. If you're losing money touring, and look, I can't stand Eric Bischoff, but not every one of his ideas were bad. When he took over WCW, right around that same time frame, right, 93, they were touring and they were trying to sell tickets and do all these things, and he just took them off the road completely, unless it was a pay-per-view or a Clash of the Champions. and he moved everything to Disney MGM Studios. And I
Mhm.
thought that was obviously a smart decision. They got the books right. So right now, nothing that they're doing is drawing for Collision. Nobody cares about Collision. You can tell by the ratings, you can tell by the ticket sales. It's just not a show that people care about. But they still want to be able to make money off of that TV show. So in order to make the most money, they're going to be moving it to a fixed location, at least for the summer. I think they're testing it out to move it to like a fixed location going forward.
Yeah.
If it stays in Arlington, or look, they had the
The
impact
Impact.
zone already
Mhm.
in Orlando. That's where they were doing Ring of Honor, and I thought that was a very smart thing. And I think WWE kind of has a stranglehold on Orlando, so maybe that's why maybe they just didn't quite work out for them, because there's a reason why they stopped, right? They stopped doing it altogether because they were doing Dark and Ring of Honor.
Well, they killed Dark, and they just started doing Ring of Honor there. But they started putting Ring of Honor on the Collision tours,
Yeah,
right? So that like that, you might rip it, but like the timing worked out. But I think they should. I thought they should have stayed there. I think that Impact Zone, that former Impact Zone, we should call it, has a good vibe to it. Like you're
yeah,
always going to have people there because of the tourism. Like I don't think this is a bad idea. And like I said, WWE has done this in eras where the numbers weren't as high, right? There's been lots of times that wrestling shows have been run out of the same venue. Like Dallas ran the Sportatorium for an eon, right? You can make these things work in smaller arenas or smaller arena-esque setups if you can keep something cool going on. I think that keeping Dynamite in the big basketball arenas gives it a look. Make it
yeah,
look different. If you're going to have these shows, make them feel different. I think that's the big struggle with Collision for a long time. Is there were differences, but didn't feel different enough. Like you put it in a different venue, all of a sudden it's going to feel different, and then let it look different, let it feel different, let it feel smaller. Like I said, Pro Wrestling's most successful television franchise is Monday Night Raw. That started in the Manhattan Center. It's very small shows. But if you get a good crowd going and you have a vibe of the TV show, it'll work.
yeah. And they can film it to make it look like it's actually big,
Yeah.
like they used to do in the Impact Zone. That was
Yes.
like they made it seem like there was like 2,000 or 3,000 people in there, and there was like 400 or 500 at times.
Yeah.
You can film it as such to where it actually looks like it's a big crowd. So,
NXT does it all the time with the. They were better at it at Full Sail when they actually had things darker. Now that they light everything in the Capitol Commons, and you can see the duct work sometimes.
yeah,
Like I think you can do that. You can dress this. You can dress the set, and you can hide it a little bit. I don't think that's a problem. That's just smart TV.
yeah. I really liked Black and Gold NXT from Full
Me
Sail.
too.
I thought that was a very good show,
Me too.
and I liked the vibe of it.
Mhm.
And people for years blamed the Impact Zone for being one of the reasons why TNA started going downhill. No, it's because what they were putting in front of the Impact Zone, people didn't want to watch,
Mhm.
so they just didn't show up. That was TNA's fault. So as
Mhm.
long as you're giving them good content, they'll continue to show up. I think this, and look, this is also AEW acknowledging that Collision on the road is not working.
Mhm.
It's absolutely not. So I said it's not all doom and gloom. That's not a good sign that it's not working on the road. But I think this is a good solution to that problem to make it more financially viable.
But at the same time, like they didn't. You said that the show wasn't necessary. Like a
Right.
year or two ago, AEW was doing pretty decent on the road. They were doing all right. They don't run house show schedules, and then they have another show. Right? They doubled their work. It was very Thunder-esque, and they're not taping. You'll know it's bad when they're taping every week. I almost said Thunder. When they're taping every week Collision and Dynamite together, they're not doing that. Right?
Yeah.
They got something different. Like I said, this can feel like WCW Saturday Night. It can feel like Monday Night Raw, and like you're going back to what has worked traditionally. And when the shows get hot, you can put them on the road again. Like even those old Nitros, right? You watched Nitro when the show wasn't hot. They were running in different kind of venues because they weren't filling arenas every week.
Yeah. Yeah, they're doing like, nightclubs and stuff like that just to do kind of different like specials, and I think that look cool.
The most famous NWO invasion angle came at MGM Studios in the parking lot. They
Yeah.
used to do parking lot shows, and they were cool. They felt different. They looked different, right? Like we have to stop running. We have to stop in wrestling running towards what WWE has done for the last 25 years. We have to stop that and start like being creative. And this is, in my mind, especially running in an esports arena, something that's totally different than what we've seen, right? It's going to be a different vibe, different setup. Be different. Don't be like them.
TNA, right before the pandemic, I think it was like the year before the pandemic, actually ran an esports arena in Los Angeles, and they actually did really well. And it looked really cool, but just their cameras are terrible. But the pictures of it, I thought was actually really cool. Yeah, I did not realize just how big esports was. That they actually have like 2,500 seat arena.
That's a decent sized arena, man. Like I said, I mean, 20. They're not going to dress for 2,500. They're going to, like you said, anywhere from 1,000 to 500 is my prediction. And I think you do it based on the crowd you have that night, and like it's an experiment. Like I said, I like experimentation. I think this is cool. Wrestling every week from basketball arenas is freaking boring. Do something different.
Yeah, well, and I think this also means I think it was King of the North in the chat said this means probably means more CMLL guys because it's in Texas. I think I can see that.
What a shame.
Yeah, I think. Well, it means, and he says I'm on board. I also think this means we'll see more of the Von Erichs because they every time they go to Texas, you hear Stranglehold, and so I think that definitely means we'll see more of the Von Erichs. And Lance Archer probably won't go months without an appearance because they always book him when they're in Texas.
It's true. Arlington is a suburb of Dallas, so I think you got a good point on both of those.